Test cricket has changed. I don't think we needed India scoring at 8 runs and over to win a 2-day match to prove that, but we got it. Also, they were trying to get into a final, which never used to exist before. So there's a lot of different things happening there. But the point is that this has been coming for an awfully long time. Teams used to score at 2 runs and over when tests began. And the reason of that was what they were playing on. Their wickets were not covered. That doesn't always matter that much, but they also had little chunks of crap on them because we hadn't even invented the agricultural tools in society to make wickets smoother. So pitch science wasn't so much a science, it was just hoping that the ball didn't hit a little bit of shit as it came down to you. Of course, at that point, scoring at 2 runs and over was an achievement. It was something to be proud of. And then over time, it sort of matured a little bit. The pitch science as it was got better. We understood things. And even though we still had a lot of uncovered pitches, we still got the scoring rate up to about 2.5 runs and over. But in the last 2.5 decades, we've been at just above 3, and that's quite a long time now. So it isn't that cricket suddenly got massively quicker. It added about half a run when the pitches got a little bit better, and then it added about half a run more. And while it might feel like everyone is scoring way quicker in cricket at the moment than they ever have before, the 3 slowest scoring years in the last decade are all fairly recent, including 2020 and 2021. That wasn't that long ago. That's like after COVID. However, obviously something has changed in the last couple of years. 2021, the economy rate for bowlers was 2.89 runs per over. In 2023, it was up to 3.4. That is half a run and over quicker. This year, we are currently at 3.46. If this holds for a while, then we're at 3.5 territory, a run and a half better than where Test cricket started. There is no one reason for this. A lot of things have changed, and so has Test cricket. If you love cricket on a deep spiritual level and want to be involved when no matches are being played, we have the game for you. Hit Wicket is so good that Harsha Bogle and me have backed it, and that's a lot of nerd energy behind one game. This is a strategic game of cricket, and it's not just about whacking your screen really, really hard with your finger. This isn't a game where you swipe all around to try and hit the ball. You work out what works best based on real-life cricket situations. For instance, dot balls bring pressure, 1s and 2s lead to 4s. There is no way you can just hit a 6 every ball or take wickets all the time. This is proper cricket, yet it still has some special gaming powers in there as well. And so this game is about playing, but also building and managing your team. You are the batter, bowler, owner, coach, captain. It's your dream, right? And there are no ads, it's just cricket. Download Hit Wicket now and bring out the cricket legend in you, because Hit Wicket is a cricket game made for you and supported by other cricket nerds. Stick it in your pocket today. This was made using MV Players Insights. The same technology that supports the England and New Zealand Test players is available to club cricketers as well. Let's start with the obvious, because I talked about it at the top. The pitches are such a major part of this. Yes, in the old days of the muck spreaders, obviously that's almost a different form of Test cricket to what we had afterwards. But even if you have a look in sort of the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, there was still what we would call uncovered wickets and occasionally sticky dogs, which means that you had really flat wickets. Like, we had scores of over 900 in Test cricket at times. We had games that went on for 1,700 days in timeless Test matches at times. But we also had innings where you would make about 35 because the ball was pinging around sideways around your head the whole time. As we start to get covered wickets, we start to get more of a consistency. But the wickets still crumble a lot towards the end of games, which means it's hard to make any scores in the 3rd and 4th innings. Again, as we start to come out of the 1980s, 1990s, we start to see that you can start to make slightly more runs in the 4th innings. The pitches just hold together a little bit more. And in fact, we probably have our best batting pitches of all time between, 2001 and 2015, say. Part of this is probably because curators are not just making one pitch anymore. They are now making limited overs pitches and test pitches, and there's probably a natural bleed over there. And so the wickets do become a lot better for batting. And of course, when they're better for batting, you could score quicker. Even little things like super stoppers have meant that the outfields, even when they're damp, the ball can still go off. And I would say now that outfields have probably never been quicker than they have been at any other point in cricket history. Not to mention that a lot of grounds now have ropes a long way in, meaning that the playing surface is a lot smaller than some of the old days. You used to get all run 5s at the MCG. It's pretty tough these days. And bats have improved as well. It isn't actually the middles. The middles are more or less the same, but the weight of them, you can get a lot more wood into a smaller bat now, the way that they are treated, and more importantly, the bits around the middle. The middle has kind of expanded, which means you can push the ball for 4 very easily in cricket in a way that you certainly couldn't in previous eras. But maybe just as importantly, or even more importantly, is batters are stronger, right? They have become professionals. At first, when we thought that batters needed to be strong, they sort of like pumped up upstairs. And then we found out it was about core, and we understand a lot more about hitting and range hitting. And also they are used to hitting the ball off the middle of the bat consistently all the way through. And that has come through to the way that they score. And of course, that also comes through to limited overs cricket. For instance, you don't leave the ball much when you are playing a T20 or an ODI game. And so again, some of those skills naturally bleed over. Hitting 4s and hitting 6s, running between the wickets a lot faster, looking for opportunities to score. All of these things weren't as natural in Test cricket in the older days. So limited overs cricket has definitely changed the way that players think about the game. Most importantly, I would say this: if you were born in 1990 and you're a professional cricketer, that means that in 2010 you were 20 years old. You were basically becoming professional just as IPL and T20 cricket all around the world was becoming the most serious form of cricket. You probably didn't grow up with the IPL or T20 cricket unless you're an England player, but you certainly spent the early part of your professional cricket in that kind of environment. So of course, again, there's always going to be a bit of a change there, and you're going to be thinking about cricket differently. So put it this way: if you were born in 1990, you'd be 34 now, but you have a completely different relationship to draws than cricketers who were born in 1980 or 1970 would, because when they grew up, that was just a normal part of cricket. If you grow up now, the vast majority of games that you play in are result games. Draws, what are you talking about? We have super overs now. We can't even have ties anymore. So draws just don't have the same pull on younger cricketers as they did before. For the longest time in cricket, I would say for the vast majority of cricket nations, instead of thinking a win was good, what they were trying to do is not lose, which is an incredibly different thing. But that's because of how prevalent draws were and how important they were. You go back and you have a look, draws happened all the time. We just don't see as many of them anymore. We're also in a weird era of Test cricket at the moment because batters are actually not doing that well at all at the moment. This year, they're averaging 28.4. There is no era after World War I where that is a good mark. That's a really poor average for Test cricketers to have. And so traditionally what they would do is they would start to defend their way out of that hole. That's not how modern cricketers look at it. And so they're actually attacking to fight back against the bowlers dominating. And of course, that is what Bazball is, right? It is why Bazball exists. England could not make any runs, and so they took their skills from white ball cricket and they tried to make them work in Test cricket. And of course, they've had mixed results against the better sides, but they're certainly dominating the poorer sides in a way that they weren't before. But the interesting thing about England and this whole conversation is I think they're actually far more interesting before Bazball. I think it's the white ball side from 2015 to 2019 that is actually the main core of what has changed here. Because India scored over 8 runs and over. That is the highest runs per over of any team with more than 250 runs in a test match. In order to have done that, let's say 15 years ago, there would have been an element of blind slogging. There would have been a bunch of shots over deep mid-wicket. It wouldn't have been as surgical or as planned as it currently is. And the reason is of course the way that T20 cricket is played now, but also specifically how England played from 2015 to 2019 in ODI cricket, where they showed that you could score really quickly without taking many risks. But it really isn't just about England, even if they've given the boost over the last couple of years, because there is obviously a whole generation of cricketers who are coming through now who have basically grown up either professionally playing T20 cricket or even watching it on TV. These are the children of T20. Jaiswal, even Travis Head, Harry Brook. They are a completely different kind of generation, not to mention that they're also being freed up to play the cricket in the way that they feel most comfortable with, which is quite often just whacking the ball really hard. It's very hard to deny the impact of T20 when you see Test players actually playing those shots in games. And the last time that teams started scoring quickly kind of out of nowhere was the start of 2000s. That was the first time we saw over 3 runs and over for a consistent decade, right? And that is when ODI cricket became big. And that also goes back to Australia. It usually is one team that sort of leads the way, and it doesn't mean that they're the only ones who do it. But that one team opening up often allows for everyone to start to think about the way they play cricket and what suits them. And it is also worth talking about this from a generational point of view. Like Pujara is no longer playing, right? BJ Watling is no longer playing. Dean Elgar is no longer playing. Like a lot of the players who had built themselves as defensive specialists who knock the ball around have actually moved on. And they're being replaced by younger players who just naturally play a lot more shots. So there's a bit of a changing of the guard that's happening right around cricket. And we also have to factor in the World Test Championship. It's obviously a terrible format and is not really run correctly and is no way a league, but it does exist. And teams do, at least some of them, want to win it, right? And those who want to win it are going to do what we have seen in first-class cricket for years. In fact, there was a county game the other day where the two teams forfeited their second and third innings so they could both have a result game. That is something we see a lot in first-class cricket, and we've never seen it all that much in Test cricket outside of, well, Hansi Cronje. But let's leave that one alone for a moment. The point being is, in first-class cricket, you quite often see teams go absolutely ballistic to try and set totals. You see all sorts of things, because suddenly each individual game and what you can get out of it from a points perspective really starts to matter. That's not happened right across Test cricket at the moment, and there's still some problems with the World Test Championship, like there should be relegation, for instance. But the basic point is that for India, it makes a lot more sense to make this game a win than it does for this game to be a draw. And so what we found with India, of course, is also that they have so many multi-format players. And that is the other thing, right? If your test team is made up of really good 5-day players, but they don't have these skills, it doesn't matter. You can't unlock this. Whereas with India, they have the skill and the talent to be able to do this. And to be fair to them, they also had the gumption. Other teams have had this choice, and we have seen an uptick in everyone scoring, not just India. There's a difference between an uptick in scoring and what Bazball did, and then again, what India did in this match. And the truth is that it's more extraordinary because for so long, teams in Test cricket, as I said before, tried not to lose, and now they are specifically trying to win. And if you think about it from a batting perspective, for the longest time in Test cricket, batters tried not to get out, and now they try to score runs. Test cricket has always changed because of the society and the conditions and the nations who play it. Players grow up attacking now, and we are seeing that in our tests. Draws, where we're going, we don't need draws.
I have a book out with Abhishek Mukherjee, and it is called Overthrowing Cricket's Empire. And it's about the stories of how each team beat England for the first time. We go all the way back to the demon Fred Spofforth getting annoyed at W.G. Grace for acting a little bit like Alex Carey. And then we come all the way to present times with Rashid Khan's England's redemption. We cover every single team to beat England in a major international, but we also talk about the incredible stories, like the barefoot basher from Fiji that almost played for New Zealand. In fact, this book is full of tales like that, like how Pakistan lost a top batter after he was on the run from an angry husband of a movie star he was having an affair with, and also how one future captain of his nation realised he might have to go out and bat at Lords and that he didn't own his own pads. Cricket was used as a tool by the empire, but what happens when those nations grow up and get good at it? Find Overthrowing Cricket's Empire on Amazon today.